Hello, everyone. It is 12:45, time for session 2. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a wonderful day so far. There's a few more people, I think, joining. Let me get them in. And as other people join in, we'll just add them in as we go. I want to be, let's see. Yay, I think I see some familiar faces, names certainly in this session. A couple more people are coming in. Let me let them in, and then we'll get started. And it's always great to see some familiar names and faces when you're a presenter. So super excited to see that. All right, there probably will be possibly some more people joining us. Oh, here we go, another one. And I'll just be adding them in as we go. I am sharing my screen with the title here to make sure you are in the right place. And this workshop is about expanding your workforce to support students after school. And here's our agenda. And as a couple more people come in, you can take a look at the agenda. I do have some time built in at the end to have questions, reflection, and maybe hopefully even some time to plan some of your next steps, or even do some problem solving with issues that you might be having in your district or with your organization regarding staffing. So hopefully at the end, we'll have some time to do some of those things as well. All right, so just if I can get a thumbs up from anybody at the camera on, if you could hear me okay. All right, perfect, great. Oh, even some icons going, great. Thank you so much. All right, so what's our purpose here? So our purpose is, having trouble staffing your expanded learning programs. Is staff turnover an issue? If so, this workshop is for you. This session is designed to inspire you to think outside of the box and to provide you with real examples being used to expand the workforce to support after-school programs via an equity recovery lens and thoughtful considerations. And we'll go into more details about what that means as we go through our presentation here. You will have access to this PowerPoint after the workshop, so you don't have to worry too much about taking notes or anything, and there'll be live links in the PowerPoint as well. All right, so let's go back to the agenda of who are you? So if you could put in the chat box just where you're coming from, what part of California, what kind of program, maybe your role. You could put in what you hope to get out of this workshop as well. And just go ahead and use the chat box and put that information in. As much or as little as you want to share, just so myself and others kind of have an idea of who you are and where you're coming from California, what maybe your role is with expanded learning, and maybe if you want to, what you hope to get out of this session as well. Good, I see some chats coming in. Okay. Hi, Edgar, good to see you. Program manager, great. Marissa. Oh, good, excellent. Thank you so much, you guys. Los Angeles. Oh, good, Scott. Different areas of California. I love to get a variety of participants so we can get input and ideas and learn from each other across the state. This is great. Program manager, ACES technical advisor. Great. NorCal, we have some Southern California, Central. Very good. Hoping to get ideas. I hope to share some great ideas that we already have in place, and also collectively as others start to think outside of the box and think about things that they haven't seen and want to start doing. Those are some great things. So if you're just joining us, if you want to put in the chat box, just where you're joining us from, maybe your role with expanded learning, and if you want what you hope to get out of the workshop. So I'm just going through here. America, good to see you. Always excited to see familiar people. Good. I'm so excited to share some of the things MPUSD has been doing regarding staffing and issues regarding retention as well. Learn about additional staffing options. Ooh, student teachers, that's a good one. Ooh, 20 sites in 18 districts. Boy, you have your hands full there, Diana. Wow. Okay, great. So I have a good idea of, sounds like we have a great variety of people here in this session. That makes for a great discussion. We'll have a couple of points where we can discuss. Yeah, Diana, you just really have your hands full. So I'm sure you have some great ideas that you've learned, though, that we'll be able to share in our discussion. Okay, so that's who you are. And then who am I? So I am Francine Stewart. So I've worked with the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. I think that's my 24th year. I'm not quite sure. I was a student in the district. I became a teacher. Prior to even working with this school district, I was a preschool teacher for Head Start. My early career, I was a bilingual kindergarten teacher, and I will tell you, I learned more Spanish and enhanced my Spanish from my kindergartners than any structured Spanish class that I've ever taken in my entire life. So that was a great opportunity for me. And then I've taught in multiple grades in elementary school, K-8 math academic coach. That was a great experience. Also, administrator, middle school and high school. I mean, middle school and elementary school, director of human resources. And currently I am the director of expanded learning with the Monterey School District. I do some adjunct teaching at Concordia, Brandman, National, and CSU Monterey Bay. And I am a lifelong learner. I hope to never stop learning. I really enjoy doing workshops because I learn as much from the participants as I share the knowledge that I have. So I do have a PhD in educational leadership, and I have a Juris Doctorate. So I went to law school. And one of the great things that I rely upon a lot is my Bachelor of Science in Journalism and Public Relations. And that has really helped me well in my presentations. So varied background. So back to the agenda. So we got an idea of the purpose. We know some of the background of you as participants. You know who I am. And then now we're at the framing part. And the framing part is an important thing as we're going through the rest of this workshop. And I'll share that with you now. So it's kind of a lens that we're going to be looking through. So it's going to be through an equity recovery lens, given the COVID-19 situation that we're in, and thoughtful considerations in that process. So I'm going to share a couple things with you here, but this is information that is taken from the website regarding information from across the state and the country, and communities of color and low-income communities, the very same communities that make up a large percentage of the expanded learning workforce, are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. So CAN got together and they rapidly convened an expanded learning stakeholders session across California to surface the impact of COVID-19 on the expanded learning workforce, and to ensure that expanded learning field itself advances equity and justice centered around the recovery strategies. An equity strategy screening tool was developed, and it's called Considerations for an Equitable Recovery for the Expanded Learning Workforce. So I'm going to share that with you. And the purpose of this is, as we're moving forward, we keep that lens in our forefront, and that what we're trying to do in expanding and building our workforce is viewed through that lens. So then it says here a little bit that the tool is intended to ensure that recovery decisions, policies, and strategies best meet the needs of employees most negatively impacted by COVID-19. So the equity screen itself consists of questions that are designed to guide the development of solutions. So particularly right now, with this money that has come from state and federal governments, and having a seat at the table is super important right now for expanded learning. And while we're at that seat, if we have this lens in place, this will help us in making sure that we are very strategic and purposeful in the use of those funds for our population of students that need it the most, and supporting our staff that need it the most. So that's kind of the framing of what we're doing moving forward. There's two things I'm going to share with you. Let me let somebody else in. Oh, great. Thank you so much. The link is in the chat, and you could go there now if you want and open that other screen. The link itself, when you have the PowerPoint, will be shared, a hyperlink in there as well. But if you go to that link, you will see that there's a variety of information there that will be helpful for you to focus through this lens, as well as to keep the questions in the forefront. So let's go to that screening tool. I'm going to share my screen in a different way. Hold on a second here. Okay, and let me go back. You're going to see. You're going to see my desktop for a second, but we're going to open this. Should it open? Hello? Here we go. Okay, so this is the really the foundation of the lens that we're going to be looking through. And there's a lot of valuable information here. I'm not going to go through each of it section by section, but there's two things I do want to point out before we move on. One is here. So under the section here, that the need for recovery efforts that include the following principles. So this is important. Deliberately plan for the most vulnerable populations. My highlighter's not working. Solve for issues facing low-income communities and communities of color, and implement race-conscious approaches to counter persistent inequities. So these are some principles that want to guide your moving forward. At the same time, the other section I'm going to point out is that here, the equity screen consists of questions that are designed to guide the development of solutions in several areas: state level policy, funding, and advocacy, staff retention and school day alignment, emotional and physical needs of staff, basic needs of staff, and professional development, training, skills, and competencies. Okay, so if we have time at the end, we can come back a little bit more into this document, but you will have the link to it and in the PowerPoint. So let me go back to check the chat. Oh, great. Full document can be found there. Perfect. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen again one more time. Hold on a second. All right, should bring me back. Okay, good. We're back. So let's go back to our agenda. So now we know the framing, our lens that we're looking through. So I'm going to share a poll. It's a quick poll just to kind of get an idea of what your staffing issues are. So let's do that first. And you should be able to see the poll. And are you guys able to see the poll? Okay. Give a couple more minutes there. So there's 3 questions in case you don't have access or you're listening to it. In case you're listening to this and not seeing a visual, the first question is, when are you having staffing issues? Select all that apply. So during the regular school year, so after school, during the regular school year, during summer, during intersession, like fall break, winter break, or spring break, or all of the above. And then the second question is, what is the greatest factor that contributes to your staffing issues? And here, I do want you to pick what you think is your greatest contributing factor, and listed here is rate of pay, part-time work schedule, hours of work, lack of qualified candidates, slow hiring process, other, it could be another reason. And then the third question is, same question, but what is your second greatest factor that contributes to your staffing issues? So I'm kind of making you pick what your top 2 are, even though you might have multiple factors that contribute. Just pick one that's the closest that you think, the first choice and your second choice. So rate of pay, again, part-time work schedule, hours of work, lack of qualified candidates, slow hiring process, or other. Okay, so I'm going to give you 10 more seconds to finish the poll, and then I will be able to share it with you. All right. Okay, let's see. Oh. Why is it not showing the results? Can you see the results?
Yes.
Yes, we can see the results.
Okay, great. I don't know why on my end, I'm not seeing them. So somebody with the microphone, who could tell me on question number 1, when are you having staffing issues? Do I have a volunteer?
I could read that, Francine. This is Edgar.
Okay, Edgar, thank you.
So when are you having staffing issues? 52% said during the regular school year, and additionally, 52% said all of the above. 19% said during summer, and 14% said during intercession. So fall breaks, winter and spring breaks.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like the majority of, well, actually, there's the 50% at least are having trouble all the time, regardless, intercession, summer, regular school year. But then also a significant amount seem to have during the regular school year, some staffing issues. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know why I can't see it, but and then how about Edgar, are you able to read me number 2? What's the greatest factor that contributes to staffing? Let's see where
Sure.
we're at there.
Yeah, the highest number was rate of pay at 43%.
Ooh.
The second highest was lack of qualified candidates with 33%.
Ooh.
The third highest was part-time work schedule at 19%. And then 5% said slow hiring process.
Okay, got it. Okay, so the top 2 there were rate of pay and lack of qualified candidates. Okay, Edgar, can you do number 3 for me?
Yes. Number 3, what is the second greatest factor that contributes to your staffing issue? And the highest percentage was part-time work schedule with 43%.
Okay,
The second highest was rate of pay, 29%.
okay,
And then hours of work and lack of qualified candidates were tied at 10%.
okay,
And slow hiring process and other were 5%.
okay, great. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, so, oop, my screen, hold on a second. Let me stop that. Okay, great. So I think, given the issues, I'm not surprised that rate of pay has come up. That seems to be a common thread. Lack of qualified candidates. I hear what you're saying. I posted, and I've had posted for a while, site directors or site coordinators on, as well as program leaders, and the amount of applicants is very small. I mean, considering that a lot of people in the past had been out of jobs, and I thought, as the economy opens up, that people would be applying more. I'm hoping that it will get increase as things open up more and people are more comfortable about it. But I do have some suggestions for everybody regarding retaining staff and increasing staff. So next on our agenda is really what MPUSD's actions have been to retain staff. And let me go to that slide. Oops, hold on. I got somebody to admit in. Hold on. There we go. So if you're just joining us, we are going to MPUSD's actions to retain staff, and then we'll go into some of our actions to increase staff. So one of the issues you said, rate of pay, it is a problem. We have strategically taken action to increase pay for our site directors and program leaders. And this does 2 things. It increases applicants, but it also helps, for me, I've noticed it more in retaining staff, because if we are able to outpace community jobs, Starbucks, the Dollar Tree, any place like in the community that somebody would look for a community job. And I'm not talking like high-tech jobs, we wouldn't be able to compete with things like that, but community level jobs. If you can build in and increase the pay to outpace the community jobs, you're more likely to retain your staff. This has to be a strategic and concerted effort on the part of the organization and or the school district that you are part of. It is there's no other way around it. But I've really seen it help in retaining jobs. Another thing that we do is flexible schedules. We hire many students. One of the things that had kept us from keeping staff in the past is we were not flexible in schedules. So our part-time staff, they would work 18.75 hours a week. So it was less than 20, an average of 3.75 hours a day. And what would happen as a student from one semester to the next, the district that we worked, previous administration in the district would not allow us flexible schedules. So if their school schedule changed from one semester to the next, and we couldn't accommodate any of that change, they would resign. We would lose staff. So, and we would end up spending more money and time to rehire and go through the process than to just allow for flexible schedules. So what we have built in, because if you're 18.75, you automatically get paid. So we're allowing for staff to take time off and submit absence slips for like school schedules. So they're not getting paid for it, but they're not losing their job either. And that's helping us retain staff. So having flexible schedules. The next on the list is board recognition for expanded learning staff. I can't tell you how far this goes. So every year I do a board annotation to formally recognize the expanded learning staff. They're invited to the board meeting, and this helps build a climate of a team, part of the district, because we know from other workshops and things I've been in that there's this divide between the regular school day and after school, where when we can blur that line and incorporate and get board recognition for our staff, it really goes a long way. This ties in also to the next two items. Inclusion with professional development. So when teachers or classified staff in the school district have opportunities for professional development, I advocate and include my expanded learning staff in that as well. So for example, PlayWorks is a program that the district has adopted for recess times, and it's really more of a structured recess program, but the district is paying for it, is training the classified staff and supervisory assistants during the regular school day. Why not add in our expanded after school staff? And they did that just this month. They had 3 trainings. We worked with our staff schedules and scheduling the training so they can attend. So they get the benefit of the professional development that the rest of the district gets. And it helps our students and it helps the staff feel more included. The next one includes inclusion with site level meetings. So SSC, school site council, PBIS, positive behavior intervention support team, IEP teams, student study teams, any kind of committees, whether it be the parent teacher association committee, the sunshine committee, whatever adjunct duties or committees that are already at the school site, include the expanded learning staff. So those 3, board recognition, inclusion with professional development, and inclusion at the site level committees and meetings, help retain our staff because they feel like they are part of a team and part of the solution. Something else that we have done to retain staff, because I hear part-time schedules was some of the issue, is that we do have full-time positions that we hadn't previously had before, as well as 12-month positions that we haven't had before. So some students like a part-time schedule, and then again we go back to that flexible scheduling, but there are community members out there that want a job, but they really need a 12-month job. So I went to the district. I said, we do run intercession, winter break, fall break, spring break, in the summer and during the school year. Why not have 12-month positions, and let's be strategic about that and build it into our plan. If being ACES funded or 21st Century funded, I will tell you it's difficult to have those positions. And I went to the district and I said, our grant cannot support 12-month positions. I'm not beating around the bush. I'm not playing games. I'm just saying, but we need them to retain staff. We need to find other funding to put into the LCFF we need to build it in, and this will help us retain staff. And when we retain staff, our quality of our program goes up. So having a seat at the table is important, but having ears and that ability to communicate that. And so what do we have now? We have some 12-month positions. And actually, right now for full-time positions, like I said before, our program leaders are 18.75 a week or 3.75 a day. However, and it works for a lot of our staff, but there are some staff that would love to have some more money and really rely and have a full day position. Because of COVID happening, and we brought back our in-person expanded learning programs, and also thankfully for the flexibility with Michael Funk and advocating for us with the state of having flexible programs on different sites, we were able to create a temporary, we called it ELO assistant program. And it is from 7:30 to 4 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And we're able to continue that. So we started it during COVID. We took basically our program leaders and we asked them, are you wanting to work full-time or do you want to stay part-time? If they wanted to stay part-time, great, stay part-time. If they wanted to go full-time, we basically put their program leader position on hold for a year. So they didn't abandon that. They didn't have to resign from it. We temporarily assigned them this last year to this ELO assistant position. I just got approval that we can extend this ELO position, assistant position, for the entire next school year. That's fabulous. And I'm going to talk to you about two important things about this, why we had to do a temporary position. Why could we not just offer more hours to the 3.75 a day or the 18.75 a week? Why we couldn't do that? There is a ed code that says if you offer extra hours, and I don't have it in front of me, for a certain period of time, essentially that employee gets a right to those positions. So we can't do this long term, and we don't want to get into any problem of having a right to a full-time position that we know our grant or our district can't sustain. So that's why we had to go into a temporary position, and all the documents HR handles, they know it's from this period of time to, in our case, the end of the school year. We will do a renewal for those staff members that want to do it for the next school year. And I will tell you, the quality of our program has skyrocketed because of those full-time positions and the three things above: the recognition, the inclusion and professional development, and the inclusion at the site level has completely raised the quality of our program. The other thing to mention about the full-time position, oh gosh, so it was ed code. I might have to come back to it. Yeah, shoot. I knew I should have wrote that down. Okay, I'll have to come back to it. So, gosh, let me think for 1 second. Yep, it's gone. It'll come back to me. Okay, so so our ELO assistant positions and also making positions 12-month really helps to retain staff. Advancement opportunities. So this is something else that we use, have restructured to retain staff. So staff can come in as a program leader 1, then advance to a program leader 2, then advance to a site director, and even a teacher in the district. And I'll go into that a little bit more on the next one. So our County Office of Education had offered at one time assistance and programs to help our employees, our classified employees, have an AA degree. Oh, let me admit a couple more people there. An AA degree, achieve a bachelor's degree. So to be a site director, you need to have a bachelor's degree. So you could come in now as a program leader, not paraprofessional compliant. I'll share that on our next session on how we can do that, how we can let program leaders come in as a level 1, not paraprofessional compliant. I'll explain that. Then become paraprofessional compliant, go to a program leader 2, and each of these has a pay increase. Then through getting from their AA to their BA, be eligible to be a site director, also a pay increase. And then the last thing there says Alder Teacher Residency Program. So we are actually a pipeline for our school district who partners with Alder, and we have a teacher residency program. So many of our site directors, and at the start of every school year, our district person who's in charge of the teacher residency program comes and talks to our site directors and says, basically, if you've ever been interested in being a teacher, we have a path for you. And we have had, we have somebody who actually was a program leader, site director, Alder teacher in our district. So that is an excellent way to retain staff. And there's many models of like a teacher residency program. We happen to partner with Alder, but that's also a great way to retain staff. And it's that advancement opportunities that will pay off in the long run. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agenda real quick, just to make sure everybody knows where we're at. So if you just join us late, we got an idea of like who I am, who everybody else is. Remember, we are framing everything through an equity recovery lens. And we talked about that for our thoughtful considerations. We keep that in mind. And then the quick poll about staffing issues. And of course, what came up was rate of pay, work schedule, lack of finding qualified candidates. And then I just shared with you some of our actions that we do to retain staff. Then we're going to do a stop here for a little bit of discussion about retaining staff before we move into me sharing the actions that MPUSD has done and are doing to increase staffing. So right now we're in discussion number 1, and let me check the chat box, and now would be a time if anybody, you could raise your hand, or you can just use the chat box, or unmute yourself if you have any other ideas or suggestions about retaining staff. This would be the time, or questions about retaining staff. So let me check the chat box. So, can a PL2 that has a BA join the teacher residency? Yes. Good question. So they don't typically, they would go from a program leader to a site director to the residency, but actually we have one program leader 2 this year that is not doing the site director, but is going straight to the teacher residency program. Thank you for asking that. And again, if anybody else, you could put in the chat box. Oh, Edgar, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, Francine. Can you go back to that slide that showed the retaining staff? Because I think I may have missed something. You had mentioned that there was a staff whose position would be put on hold for a while, and I couldn't recall what that was referring to.
Okay, so so our program leaders are part-time employees. And because we had additional funding and we had the need and flexibility to offer a program from 7:30 to 4, we were then able to create an ELO assistant position. And so what we did was the program leaders we currently have, they did not have to give up their program leader position. They could stay in it as a part-time employee, or they could temporarily put it on hold. Like we wouldn't, they wouldn't resign from that position. They still have rights to that position. At any time, they could go back into that program leader position. So that was important for security, for job security for some of our program leaders. And some of them that had not worked full-time with students weren't quite sure how they were going to adapt to it. So they wanted to make sure they could go back to being a part-time program leader. And they also have rights to that position. So there was temporarily put on hold their program leader position. And then we were put into a temporary ELO assistant position. And the reason we had to make it temporary is because I had mentioned, if you just joined us, that there is ed code that you can't, over a sustained amount of time, just offer extra hours to a program leader, because that was originally our goal. Well, anybody who wants extra hours, we'll just offer it to them. Well, HR said, no, there's a ed code, there's a problem with that. They would gain rights to those extra hours, and that was not our intent. So that's why we created the other position, but they do retain their rights to go back into a program leader. Did that answer that, Edgar?
Yes, it did, Francine. We did something very similar when we went into COVID. We had full-time positions, and because of ed code, I think it was 20 consecutive days that they're working that
Yes.
schedule, then they have to keep that or have rights to continue working that full-time. So we had to create an MOU that said they would go back to their position, in this case, a PL1 or 2,
Yes.
when we return to regular hours. So thank you for explaining that, but that sounds very familiar to what we also
Great.
had to do.
I'm glad. Did your district, our district just decided that we're going to continue those for the fall? Are you going to continue those as well, or are they going to expire?
No, our district is expired. Our district's returning to, normal hours
Yeah.
actually this week. So our program staff are all returning to their regular afternoon hours starting this week, and that's what we're anticipating for the fall as well.
Well, okay, so our district is 2, and here's why they're going to continue those positions. Because they've built the relationships already, and we are coming back in person, but because of the additional funds that are being made available to the district, and part of the expanded learning funds, you have to dedicate some of those funds to classified staff. So our district decided that we already have this in place. It's been working well. The quality of our programs is going up. Why not continue something that we've already started, and it meets the purpose of both things? The grant, the new funding that the AB 86 funding has come out, a portion for classified staff. So it meets that goal. And it also provides consistency at the sites. And our principals and administrators like it because they have extra bodies on campus, because even though we're returning in person and our school year starts early, like August 4th or something like that, super early, given what county you're in, you still may not need be available to like mixed groups of students. So there's this extra need of separate recesses, separate lunches, separate coming and going on campus. And there's just not enough staff members to do that. So by us continuing that position, we're saying it's a win for everybody. Our employees get the benefit, and then they're also able to help the site with what their needs are regarding the COVID restrictions going on right now. I did remember what I was going to say about the ELO assistant positions, and this is important to know. So because and if you're at a district level, you know about supplanting and supporting, or supplementing versus supplanting. Supplanting is a bad word. We don't want to supplant things. You can't use one fund to supplant another fund. So because we already had program leader positions, and let's say it's 3.75 a day, that's where we were. The difference between the 3.75 and an 8-hour day is what the ESSER funds and the new funding is paying for. Our grant is still paying the 3.75 that we normally would pay, because those positions and those people are ours. But that increase in hours for this purpose is not supplanting anything else, because we didn't have them before. So then we're able to use those new funds in that way without getting into trouble with supplanting. So those were the two things I wanted to make sure to mention for that full-time position, the ed code and the supplanting. So let me check the chat box here for a second. So, I'm finding that working with early educators is also an approach as they are in college. Oh, for the child development permit. Yes, that's great. Yes, make sure we're going to bring that up in our next section as well. And then how did you negotiate that with the union? Okay, great question, because anything with job positions, you do have to run through the union. Basically, there was no issue with the union, because what are we doing? We're offering their bargain members more work and more pay. The consideration that you have to get approval from the union. The consideration that you have to have as a factor is that the work that you're offering by these expanded positions is not taking away work from other positions that other people hold, or that are vacant positions. So the union wants to know, well, if you're going to do this, are you going to take away supervisory positions that are already vacant? No, they're separate. They're not the same thing. So that's really what their concern was. Other than that, they're super happy, because it's like their bargaining unit members have more work and more pay, and they're happier. Great question. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. Okay. So let's see. Anything else for the discussion of retaining staff before we go on to the next section on how we have been increasing our staff? I don't see any hands up. Oh,
I
go
had
ahead.
one more, yeah, around the pathway, the advancement opportunities. How long does it usually take for someone to move from a PL1 to earning their credential through the residency?
Great question. Okay, so the residency program, it's individual in terms of how long the overall thing would take, but to break down, the residency program itself is a 1-year program. They end up getting a preliminary teaching credential and a master's degree and a job in the district. That's huge, right? Now, if we had somebody, it can take longer if somebody was coming from an AA degree and didn't have any units towards a bachelor's degree. So an AA degree is typically 2 years, a bachelor's degree could be 4 years, and then the teacher residency program is 1 year. So if you're starting really from nothing, you have 4, 5, 6, 7, it could be a 7-year process. What we're finding is that most are coming into the teacher residency program at the site director level. But like I said, this year we even had somebody come in from the program leader level who already had their bachelor's degree. But in the next section, I can share a little bit more about how we're supporting our staff in their advancement opportunities. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so let me look at the chat box again. And you might have staff with you then for 2 to 7 years. Yes, for the retention, because that's the whole thing. I mean, not only staffing an issue, but retaining staff. And like I said, the more you can retain your staff, the quality of your program is just going to keep going up. Thank you for that. That is great. Okay, so let me just go back to our agenda to make sure where we're at. So now we're at the, I'm going to share a slide on the actions that MPUSD has done and is currently doing to increase our staffing for after school. We'll do the same thing. We'll have a discussion about that after as well. Let me just check time. Okay, we're doing good. All right, let me go back here to our staffing. Oop, that's retain. Okay, increase staffing. So the first thing on this list is what's called a paraprofessional waiver and a plan to remedy. So as we know, with ACES and 21st Century, if you have a program leader or a staff member, they need to be paraprofessional compliant. If you've gone through FPM, you know that that's really one of the common findings is that staff are not paraprofessional compliant. That means it's also an issue when hiring staff that, and it limits the pool of candidates if you can only hire staff that is paraprofessional compliant. So before I had mentioned we have a program leader 1 and a program leader 2. Program leader 1 is not paraprofessional compliant and program leader 2 is paraprofessional compliant. How do we get in a program leader that's not paraprofessional compliant and use grant funds to pay for it? Well, we use a paraprofessional waiver and a plan to remedy. So I'm going to share my screen in a different way so you could see the board annotation, and then I'll share that with you guys as well. So let me just change views for a second. Share. All right, so this is just a copy of our board annotation, and I'll go through it so you can see the intent of it. It says to waive the paraprofessional requirement for the program leader position beginning with the school year, this school year. I didn't put an end date on it. This is an ongoing waiver. And what I mentioned in the background is that we have consistently had issues with hiring staff. It's not anything new with COVID, but COVID did play a part in it, but it's really nothing new. And because of the FPM requirement to be paraprofessional compliant, then we needed to put this waiver in place. So just so you know, and I should have pulled up the actual language of, maybe if I have time at the end, I'll share that with you. So with FPM, if you actually look at the wording of the FPM, it says that you need to have staff that are paraprofessional compliant related or under the district's policy, under what the district policy is for becoming paraprofessional compliant. So we have a paraprofessional exam that we give to our employees if they want to take in order to become paraprofessional compliant. So because it resides at the district, then we have created a waiver for this. So I don't know if how many of you have been in education for a while. I've been in education for a while. And remember when I shared my background, I shared that I was a bilingual kindergarten teacher and it was the best time for me. Well, actually, I was on a plan to remedy. And it was a plan to remedy to be a B-clad credential. I didn't have a B-clad credential. I had a clad credential, but not the bilingual part, but I was in the process of getting it. So in order for the district to hire me in the position, they had what was called, and it was a statewide thing, I believe. I don't know nationwide. I know statewide, plan to remedy. So I remembered that. I said, well, we did this plan to remedy when I was a bilingual kindergarten teacher. Because of the need, there was such a great need for bilingual teachers at the time that the district and the state had to do something in order to meet that need. So I said, why don't we follow the same process and create a plan to remedy for program leaders and our expanded learning? So that's where this originated from. And basically, so I give a little bit of background about why we have to tie it to one of our school or district goals, which is our goal 1, improve outcome for all students and eliminate performance gaps. So that's the background and that's the school goal. And then here is the actual information. It says that the long-term goal is to have program leaders that are on a professional waiver to become paraprofessional compliant within 3 years. 3 years? Yes, 3 years, because we want to retain staff. You know, so that's when you're asked, why 3 years? Why not 60 days or 6 months or 1 year? Because we want to retain staff. And if you're a good staff member and you're making progress towards getting paraprofessional compliant, it's good for students, it's good for our program, it's good for the employee. So let's give them that opportunity. And then I also wrote in extensions provided by ELO, expanded learning opportunities, are possible on a case-by-case basis. So I left an extension possibility case by case with essentially me as part of the district. So I can give input. There might be circumstances relating to an employee that we really don't want to lose, and they're really great for students. And how can we, help them if they do need an extension? A short-term goal is to enhance our community relationships and provide the waiver to the employees of our community partners. So because of COVID, we had to really align and bring in community partners for our expanded learning to meet the great needs that we had for so many students. So we partner with the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, but we were gonna, in the agreement, use our sites, use their staff, but use grant funds. So how are we going to pay them with grant funds if they're not paraprofessional compliant? Well, we can if they're on this waiver in the short term, because we can offer them the same options as we are with our current ELO staff. So the plan itself is a program leader hired by MPUSD without meeting the paraprofessional requirements would be placed on a plan to remedy, or PTR, and will involve the program leader making adequate progress. That's important, adequate progress towards becoming paraprofessional compliant via 2 paths. And I'll show you the path below and what it means by making adequate progress. It also says all community partner staff working with MPUSD students will have the paraprofessional waiver applied to them. And we want to encourage the partnerships. We need the partnerships. It's better for our district because we can get more students involved in in-person learning or hybrid learning and enrichment and engagement. So that's what we wanted to do. So here is let's see, if the community partner staff want to participate in the plan to remedy, one of the paths below, the staff member will notify their immediate supervisor and the director of expanded learning within 30 calendar days of being hired. So here's the two paths, the PTR paths. Path 1, AA degree or 48 units. So the program leader will be granted flexible scheduling, which I mentioned on the other slide, to attend classes towards obtaining an AA degree or reaching 48 semester units. Here's the other important part. Program leaders would be expected to take at least one class per semester to be making adequate progress. So we do want them at least one class, but we do want them making progress towards becoming paraprofessional compliant. The other path is how I mentioned, we have a district paraprofessional exam. So program leaders would be granted flexible scheduling to study for and to take the paraprofessional exam. Program leaders would be expected to, so here's the adequate progress part, expected to take the district paraprofessional exam at least 2 times per year to be making adequate progress. They don't have to pass it. They need to be taking it, and that would meet the progress towards. And on top of that, you know, our district has study guides and other things like that that can help a program leader become paraprofessional compliant. So let me go back to my other format really quickly here, and then I'll check the chat box. Hold on. One more thing. Oop. Here we go. Okay. All right, I'm back here. Let me check the chat box. Yes, it was really important to include the community partners in the plan, in the short term and in the long term. So let me go back to the slide of, oop, that's my thank you. So that's the paraprofessional waiver and plan to remedy. Something else that we're doing, if you're not working, if your district or your program is not working with AmeriCorps, they should be working with AmeriCorps. And trying to partner with AmeriCorps. The district itself, our district partners with AmeriCorps staff. They are included in the professional development training, and they're actually trained in SIPs. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with SIPs, but AmeriCorps has a literacy-based focus. We, as a district, trained all of our AmeriCorps staff members in SIPs. So during the day, part, because they are full-time, their AmeriCorps is full-time, and we currently have 10 AmeriCorps staff members in our district, and they're full-time. I think they're 7:30 to 2 or 3. I can't remember what time they end according to AmeriCorps, but via our partnership, then I hire them after school at the site that they're already working at doing their SIPs training, and they do literacy support after school as a program leader. And depending upon what their personal their desires are and what they're comfortable with, they could do many things after school. They could take a group, but they could do writer's workshop. What's the one? I can't think of the one that it's reading, but they're actually like doing a play. It's out of my head right now, but it'll come to me. There's a lot of things. So
Reader's
using
Theater.
Yes, thank you. Reader's Theater. I love Reader's Theater. They could do Reader's Theater after school. They could do a book club. You could have a book club for different grade levels. There's so many things. And we have 10 AmeriCorps that are working after school with us on top of being AmeriCorps during the regular school day. And that is a great partnership. The next thing is CSUMB. So we're we're in Monterey, right next to Cal State University, Monterey Bay. And every university in the state of California, a state university, has a service learning requirement. So we are working with the service learning department on a partnership. And actually, one of the great things with this is previously, if you say service learning, it had to be volunteer. Actually, it's not. If we looked at it, it doesn't specifically say that you cannot be paid to be a service learner. So what we're doing in our partnership is that we are going to go to their service learning. It used to be, I can't think of what the name of it is. It's probably virtual now. It's like a job thing, but it's a sign up for service learning. And we have a seat at the table. We have our school sites, maps where they are. You know, some are in walking distance to CSUMB, some are a short drive away, some bus things are there. So we could say, this is how you can get to our school sites. And we have set aside at least one paid program leader position at each of our school sites for a CSUMB service learner. So what's the benefit? That CSUMB service learners get to complete their service learning requirement. They get paid for it. If they are in the teacher track or teacher program or wanting to, mostly, actually, we have a lot of students from school of psychology and child development. They want to work with and have interaction with children to fine tune their own skills. And we get the benefit of having the partnership with CSUMB and having a direct stream of staff members that want to work in our schools. We also have service learners that are volunteer. We have that as well, but adding that component of a paid service learner has really helped a lot. So another thing we always incorporate is site credentialed teachers into our after school program. We don't consider them full-time staff because most of them just are like on a Monday, Tuesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. But if your programs are anything like my programs, I usually have one or more staff member that's late or gets called out, called out of work because they're not feeling well, or they have another obligation, or their car breaks down. So having that relationship with the school site, and especially now with the additional funds, that can be worked into the AB 86 plan to pay credentialed teachers after school to help support your after school programs. But that will help in two ways. If you don't have the relationship with the teachers, it'll help create it. Right now, the grant funds and the additional fundings would pay for it. And that'll give you time to, when that funding goes away, work into your budget how you would pay for credentialed teachers after school. We've worked it into our budget. It's a standing item, and it's a goal for us to have, our goal is 1 to 3 credentialed teachers at each of our school sites after school. And although, like I said, it doesn't, we don't count them as staffing, but it does help with staffing, especially when we have staff members not there. Retired teachers is another great pool to draw from. And your human resources department, or if you're an outside organization, you can reach out to your local school district's HR department and ask if there are retired teachers that want to either volunteer, they can volunteer, or if you have a stipend or a small amount that you can pay them, that would be a bonus on top as well. The next thing is integrating a community run after school club or clubs. So for example, if we had a gardening club and we have the Museum of Natural Resources here, and their staff want to come on Mondays to this school site, Tuesdays to that school site, Wednesdays to that school site, or whatever it is, and do an after school club, then instead of maybe me having to staff 2 staff members to that group of students, I can assign 1 staff member with the person running the club, and that would free up another staff member to help with other things. Or like I said, absences is usually an issue, that we are still able to meet our ratios with students. And primarily, actually, even before ratios, it's really a safety thing. We're able to have enough adult eyes and also create engaging activities for our students to participate in. So that's just one example. A lot of other clubs, cooking clubs, we have a culinary department in our school district where they sample menus and do things like that. That could be a club. There's so many things that you can integrate your community in doing those clubs and have them on a routine schedule. So that will help with your staffing as well. Staff on loan, this is something that came up in our Region 5 meeting, and we're actually working together where it is possible that there are within a community or neighboring communities have extra staff a certain time of the day, and they don't want to reduce their workload, or they don't want to, lay off somebody, but a neighboring organization can essentially loan them or hire them for their vacancies that they're having trouble filling. So I know Region 5 with Mara and Letty, that's something that we're really making a kind of a concerted effort within our region to do, but other regions can do the same thing, where we don't always see the same need and the same time, but those neighboring staff, we can essentially loan each other for that time to kind of get over that hiring issue that we might have. So job shares is something that has come up recently in talking about summer. So traditionally, we've offered positions where if we have a 4-week summer program that we want you to work the entire 4 weeks. It's consistency for the students and the program and the quality. But what we're offering now is a 2-week and a 2-week in the same position, so that if it's a program leader, the site director who's at the site knows that these 2 people, and they would get trained at the same time, but then they would work different, like 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of program and the second 2 weeks of program. So job shares is something that we're starting for this summer, which we hadn't done before. The other thing it goes along with it is summer and intersession stipends. If your district is not currently offering stipends to work for summer or for the next school year's intersession, now is the time to have that discussion with them. Absolutely, it should be something that can be offered. I'll share what we're doing, classified and certificated for all employees in the district. Bus drivers, nutrition services, after school, credentialed teachers will get a $2,000 stipend to work in summer. They could also do a job share. So if they work 2 weeks of summer, we would split the stipend. They would get $1,000, and the other person that works the other 2 weeks would get the other $1,000 stipend. So that's how the job share can interact in there. What I'm talking about for intersession in the coming school year, because these plans have to be submitted by June 1st, now is the time to work in and budget for a stipend. So if you're going to have a July program, if you're going to have a fall intersession, a winter intersession, or a spring intersession, or even if, the next June, try to get a stipend in there now. Before we got approved for the stipend, I did not have enough staff. Once the stipend came in, people wanted to work, and I can't blame them. And especially for our expanded learning staff, of which I am extremely grateful for, our expanded learning staff. Also, I'm PUSD superintendent, PK Diffenbaugh, and assistant superintendent Cresta McIntosh, and the school board for making these things possible. So it does take a team. It does take commitment. I am willing to, help any of you out there that are here in this session. If you need help making the first step to communicate with your ed services team, a board member, a superintendent, anything like that, to get that ball rolling, or help impart some of these ideas on why it's so important for the retention and for the hiring of staff. I am here to help you with that as well. So looking at time, let's do a little bit of discussion. Maybe you guys already have some other ideas on ways to increase staff. So if you want to raise your hand, you could use the chat box. You can unmute if you can't find the hand raising. Just want to share of any ideas, or maybe something you said you thought of and you didn't know if it'd work or not. Throw it out there. Let's see what you got about increasing staffing. Let me check the chat box real quick. Okay. And let me see if any hands are up. And I threw a lot of information at you guys. So I do see the job descriptions for PL1 and PL2. Okay, let me make a note of that. I will include that in our the resources for the workshop. Thank you for asking. Actually, we're revising them right now as well. So I will share them as soon. I could share the current ones we have that will give you an idea, and we're just fine tuning a few things for the revision. So I will share that. Thank you for asking.
Hi, Francine. This is America.
Yes.
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I just want to thank you and tell the group that I know you supported by sharing that document for the paraprofessional waiver. I shared with our superintendent from Franklin McKinley, and we talked about it, and he really loved it. What he also mentioned that we are Catholic Charities, so we partner with the district, but he said for those staff that wouldn't pass the paraprofessional test of maybe the first time, that from his budget, he would pay for a tutor to tutor our staff to make sure that we're moving toward that direction. So thank you again. It works. So I encourage everybody to, talk to, your people or your superintendents. I think it worked well. It went through the board and it got passed. So really excited about that. And it speeded up the process. And we all know, testing for many of, for our young staff, and, I always kid with my team. I tell them, if I go and take that test, I don't know if I'll pass it. But who knows, right? Because testing for some people, they get nervous, and the math has been the biggest challenge. So
yes,
we're really excited about that partnership, and I owe it all to you. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really excited to hear about, districts, supporting the process, offering the tutor and the help. That's great. That is fabulous. I'm going to ask myself. That's something I'm going to ask for too. So thank you for sharing that. And let's see something in the chat box here. Districts have such a stake because yes, it does. It supports their own pipeline. And it's really, there's no downside to it. It's really a great thing for everybody involved. Thank you so much, America, for sharing. Thank you for the chat comments. Anything else, any other ideas? Let's see, is it possible to get the waiver so that we can take it out to our district? Yes, I will also share the waiver annotation with you all as well. And then on the back end, so just so you know, when we hire a program leader that's going to be on the waiver, then they have to sign something. Basically, it's really an acknowledgement that they're being hired on a waiver, and they need to be making the adequate progress as we described. And if after 3 years, they could ask for an extension, but it wouldn't necessarily be granted. And but it could, depending on the circumstance. But their position is basically they need to in 3 years. And I have no doubt that with the supports in place, that somebody would get the units or pass the exam within that amount of time, barring some other circumstance, and that would be on a case-by-case basis. But there is a HR backup of it that they commit to when they sign that they're going to be an employee. The waiver, yep, I will share the waiver. Okay, anything else? So now, let's see. So I was super grateful. I'm telling you, it takes a team. And then other questions, reflection, next steps. Does anybody want to share their next step? What are you going to do with, did you learn something here that you want to do? You could put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. I'm curious to know.
I have a question about your collaboration with AmeriCorps. Was that initiated through your department, or was that a district initiation? And then can you refresh just, you said that they work part day during the school day hours and then work with you in the afternoon?
Yes, so it was actually initiated with the school district because we hadn't had AmeriCorps for a long time in the district. And I wasn't in this position to know what happened or why it was not. But when I got into this position, I knew that the expanded learning had a relationship with AmeriCorps, but at the time the district didn't have any connection with AmeriCorps. So then once I heard the district did start to revive that, that's when I said, oh, hey, we've already had previously a relationship with AmeriCorps. So how can we use those resources to help our students together? So AmeriCorps, they are full-time under the umbrella of AmeriCorps. And we as a district had a strategic plan on a district level to train the AmeriCorps in SIPs. And I'm not sure if anybody's that familiar with SIPs, but it's a very step-by-step program for literacy support. And then we had targeted groups of students at our highest need schools. And we have the 10 AmeriCorps, but they're only at 4 sites because those are our highest need sites. So then we can, during the day, make breakout groups and strategically support those students in literacy via the SIPs program that the district paid for. Then after school, so our program runs to 6 o'clock. So because, and there's not an overtime issue because they're not a district employee, so there's not overtime. So they end their time with AmeriCorps and then come to our after school program and work for us. And it is voluntary on their part if they want to work for us to have those extra hours as a paid time. But I think most of them did opt in for that. A couple of them didn't. Lives and schedules, that's fine. Oh, great. You put SIPs training in there. Thank you so much. Yes, SIPs is a really good program. So, and it has a very designated purpose. So also AmeriCorps, they have a literacy purpose. So that's why we want to utilize them after school for book clubs, literacy games, anything related to language and literacy as well. So I hope that answered your question about AmeriCorps. All right, let's see. Let me see the chat box. Anybody else have any other questions, reflection, next steps, what you might be doing or what you're thinking about doing, thoughts?
I'm curious, what if you were to answer those questions that you asked us in the poll about what now are some of your like top two staffing challenges, what are they for you? Because you shared with us a bunch of strategies, right, to try to address those. So what are your challenges that you're still experiencing?
So thank you, good question. My current challenge is, given a lot of things were in motion and are kind of still in motion regarding the full-time position and expanding the hours, and we're redoing the program leader positions. So we haven't had that much time in between to see the outcome. What my current issue is, qualified staff, I guess, would fall under that category. Qualified meaning that they meet the minimum requirements to work to get the job, let's say even being paraprofessional compliant. But my biggest issue is maybe under the category of work ethic, or what it means to have a job that you are responsible for. So what I'm still having trouble with is staff members, calling out often, or they call out like 10 minutes before their shift starts. Or they say they have to leave early, but they don't tell anybody until like they're getting their bag and walking out the door. If we offer professional development, maybe and it's a required, they come in late even though it's a paid time. So that's my biggest issue. It kind of maybe under the quality of staff. I don't know if anybody else is having similar issues in that regard. What we have started though is an onboarding process where we're setting out the expectations for the staff members, even though HR does their hiring and technically gives them that information, we're doing it again. And then I'm also trying to weave into our weekly staff meetings just some reminders about protocols and being professional, being on their cell phones while they should be supervising, what active supervision means. Those kind of things are really my biggest issue right now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's helpful. And the session that I was in last, we had a really great advocate from community colleges, right? And just sharing a lot of intentionality about working with older young people, right? I mean, a lot of our staff that are college students are young adults, and so they're right still developing and going through their own sort of developmental stage. And so to think about what strategies work toward that, how might policies need to be examined or as flexible as possible to help really support the young adults where they are developmentally, while still, like you said, upholding their responsibilities. So that's helpful to know that, that's what you're working on now.
Yes. So, and it all goes to, raising the quality of the program. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. So looking at the time, we're just about the end. I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you got something out of this. My email address, let's see, I think, did I put it on the first slide? Maybe. Of course I didn't. I'll put it in the, it's in the app, but I can put it in the chat box as well, just in case you want to follow up with something, or you just kind of say, oh, I have this idea about this or that. Can it work? And let's kind of brainstorm it. We could do that. So fstewart@mpusd.k12.ca.us. There we go. Please reach out. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I'll stick around here in case anybody does have a follow-up.